Well, here we are, final chapter of Max Payne trilogy, nearly 10 years after the franchise's last installment, Max Payne 3. This game has had quite the mixed reception. Some think it's the best in the trilogy, and others, well, in fact, I haven't seen a fan base this divided over a game sequel since Silent Hill 4, so let's settle this once and for all. I'm going to take a subjective look at this game and see what I find. This is Max Payne 3. So we're treated to a cutscene where Max is in his room drinking. I love how seamlessly the intro cutscene transitions to the main menu then back to cutscenes. It makes it feel like one long take. It's very seamless. I like it. As I'm sure you can tell from the intro cutscenes, this is going to be a very different experience. In the first game, most of the story was told through graphic novel still images, only using cutscenes occasionally, mostly at the start of the level with an establishing shot, showing where the player is in the level, where Max will usually say some sort of quip.
Colder than a walk-in fridge. Cold as a gun.
The graphic novel stills were also used to transition between areas, where Max would often reflect on the events and information he just learned, but also while inspecting items of interest, adding more to the plot, world, and level setting. For example, Max would watch a news report on events that directly or indirectly connected to him, or make a comment on a random item laying around, making a connection to a certain character or plot point. He is a detective after all, but in the second game there was definitely more of an emphasis on cutscenes.
Allow me to present Max Payne.
Still using graphic novels occasionally when transitioning between areas and telling parts of the story, but most of it being told with the cutscenes. And in the third game there's only cutscenes. Even the style looks different, with the footage looking glitchy, almost distorted, with certain words and phrases said by characters hanging in the air, showing their importance because, well, most of the game's story is told through Max's memory. The story is rarely told in a linear way. The game transitions from flashbacks to introspections back to more flashbacks, hence the glitchy footage, because logically his memory would be hazy from all that pain pill popping and scotch swigging, which, similar to the other two games, is used to transition between chapters. I like it. It's unique. You can still examine items related to the story, now dubbed clues, but sadly it's not as interesting as before. Anyway, now we get into the first chapter. Max is a bodyguard for some rich celebrities. There's Rodrigo Branco, Max's boss, his wife, Fabiana, there's Marcelo, the drug-addicted socialite younger brother.
Yeah, well, my wife passed away.
Good. Not good. Bad. Real bad.
And there's the middle brother, Victor, the politician. And there's also Passos, our bodyguard friend. Some thugs break in and kidnap Branco and Fabiana. This is where we get first look at gameplay. Now, there's a new control layout. Again, this time diving is a combination between the right stick and RB. The left trigger is now to aim and lock onto your next target. Remaining prone after a dive makes a comeback from 2, and it's even better. Instead of getting up once your clips run out, you remain prone until you move the left stick, which honestly is way better, and I actually found myself using it more. There's also a limited carrying capacity. You can only hold one primary arm and 2 sidearms, which is fine. In the first 2 games, Max would keep machine guns, submachine guns, rifles, pistols, grenades, and not to mention all the ammo for said guns under his trench coat, which is understandable why they'd want to change it for this game, being more of a realistic take of course. There's golden gun parts only being comparable to me at every single party I've ever been to. Just kind of being there. Existing. But the biggest addition by far would have to be the cover system. That's right, for the first time ever in the series you can go behind cover. It's extremely easy to string together well-positioned dives into new cover, all while capping dudes left, right and center. At first I thought this new cover mechanic would make the game a little too easy, but I am happy to say the difficulty does ramp up later on. Wait, how do I even switch between my guns? No. Ah, forget it, I'll just look through the manual. Okay, LB. Damn. I will admit, this is a nice manual. It's printed in colour, it goes into extensive detail, it's pretty lengthy too, and it's even printed on high quality paper. It's clear they wanted you to feel like you were getting your money's worth. A complete rarity now. Good manuals sort of died around this era, and I miss it. I miss the feeling of buying a game and getting a nice thick booklet to sink my teeth into. Not literally. Most of the time you'd be lucky to even get a manual in the first place, and when you do it's usually... Is that it? When you're just gonna give me the control layout in black and white, what's the point in even printing a manual in the first place? And it's not just games from the 8 generation that do this. I can think of many games from the Xbox 360 generation that do the exact same thing. It used to mostly be like this with hack developers, you know, like Midas Games and the such. But over time, publishers have just been putting less and less effort in. It's gone to the point where even if you do get a manual that's in color, there's barely anything in it, or they crammed as much as they could onto 1 or 2 pages. This is it, the rest of this manual is just the same but in different languages. When Dora Saves the Snow Princess has a better manual than you, it's time to contemplate some life choices. Good manuals are more of a premium thing. Now, a substantial manual will come at a more substantial cost, but there is still some hope. Good manuals are being kept alive with the indie scene, but I don't think it's gonna last. Here's the thing, the industry is pushing for a digital format, and you can see that with the price differences with the PS5 and Xbox. Getting one with a disc drive is gonna cost a lot more. The only reason why they haven't killed it off yet is because there's still some money to be made out of it. And I bet that the next generation of consoles, the PS6, the next Bone 420s or whatever the fuck they're gonna do, will completely drop the physical format altogether, and that's kind of sad. Well, that went on for a little bit too long. The combat is really good, it's fast paced, keeps you on your toes, every shot has impact, and in fact I'd say this game has the most fun gameplay out of the entire trilogy, but it's kind of ruined by a mechanic called near death. If you're being shot in a gunfight, then I'll go into this sort of slow-mo mode, where you get to shoot the guy that shot you. If you don't do it in time, you'll die and get sent back to the last checkpoint. This would often get me killed because the guy that shot me would often go back behind cover, or the camera would just go wonky, meaning I couldn't shoot him. And sometimes when I actually did shoot the guy, a kill cam would play out, while one of his teammates ran up and shot me while I was helpless, and I'd die. Again. This made the combat a complete and utter chore to sit through at points, and I do actually think the game would have been better without it. So after saving Bronco and Fabiana, we flash forward a couple of days to chapter 2, where Max is escorting Marcello, Fabiana and Fabiana's sister Giovanna Travis at a local nightclub.
Fabiana had brought her sister along, presumably so she could show off just how rich and empty her life was. And boy, was she about to learn the meaning of rich and empty.
Some more gangsters break in and kidnap Fabiana and Giovanna. This level kind of reminds me of the nightclub from the first John Wick movie. I'm probably not the first person to make that connection, but yeah. Anyway, the commander's summer escape with Fabiana, and this is what most of the game is about, trying to get her back. After a negotiation goes south, Max and Passos are stranded in a football stadium. Huh, what does this remind me of? Video. It's pretty good. Link's in the description, you should check it out. Do it, check out my last video, bitch. Check it out. The environments you encounter throughout the game are really great, with a lot of fine details. When you're blasting through the streets of Sao Paulo, innocent people shut their doors and windows. Stuff in the environment like walls crumble away after being shot at. And despite the game being developed by a different studio, the environments, like the other games, feel like a tangible place, except it's a little more exotic. To understand what I'm talking about, I'm going to use the first game as an example. The environments are mundane, like an office building or a rundown block of flats. You know, somewhere you might actually see or go in real life. Its atmosphere only being heightened by its sound design and interactivity. You could goof around with certain items laying around or just take it in. The wind blowing outside, the echoes of footsteps on concrete, the sounds of the city nightlife in the distance. It's nice to take a moment from shooting the stuffing out of the game to admire the little things. And I always love this game for that. And it's the same with the slums of Sao Paulo. The streets are covered with dirt and debris, everything is wet and dirty and all around just disgusting. Everyone you run into either A, wants to immediately kill you, or B, acts extremely hostile. So basically it's the actual Sao Paulo. Oh Christ, oh, I think that might have got a little too deep. Everyone wants nothing to do with you, and you certainly feel it. The houses, if you could even call them houses, being mostly empty with just pieces of garbage lying around the place. What's up with this room? Like, where's this guy sleep? Does he sleep on the floor? probably. And all this contrasts with the nice, clean villas and mansions you would have seen up to this point. And even though I myself have never visited the slums of Sao Paulo, this is certainly what I imagined it'd be like. And here's where we transition into the soundtrack. Yeah, the soundtrack. I can't believe it's taken me this long to talk about it. Being composed by the American noise rock band Health, I honestly think they did a pretty good job. In fact, I think this game has the best soundtrack of the entire trilogy. Yeah. And while I do think the other games still have good soundtracks, this one is just way more memorable to me. The droning chords of the guitar and keyboard, the pounding beat of the drums, and even the use of more exotic instruments like the percussion of a goddamn egg shaker, all come together to make a soundtrack that, while similar to the other two in many ways, still has its own identity. It's sadder, which I feel fits the overall theme of the game very well. Max has hit his rockiest of rock bottoms, and I feel that the soundtrack captures this perfectly. My favourite song in the lineup, by far, would have to be Torture. It's a simple song, yeah, but I don't know, it's just really memorable to me. It says so much with so little. But of course, how could we go without talking about the fan favourite, Tears. To put it bluntly, it's one of the most iconic songs in the franchise next to the main theme, and not without good reason. It also helps that the song is coupled with one of the most iconic set pieces in the entire franchise, but those lyrics, clearly being a message from Max's dead wife and daughter telling him to move on, is honestly a really nice touch. I should mention that this is the only entry in the series to get an 18+ rating, and Jesus Christ, it certainly owns it, with drugs, nudity and violence being all prominent themes. It's also a lot more brutal and in your face. There was violence in the first two games, but it felt more subdued, more held back. Yeah, which is understandable why it'd be more brutal coming from fucking Rockstar.
Please don't do this! Oh, please! Oh, please! You don't want to do this! Oh, please! No, please!
Okay, I think I said all I want to say about the gameplay. Now we get to the story, the most controversial thing about this game. This is what the fanbase was, most divided over, and despite what I read and heard online, I went into it with an open mind, and what I discovered might surprise you. Oh, this is also where we get into story spoiler territory. Skip here if you don't want to see spoilers, or here, or here, or here, or wherever I decide to fucking put it. Max Payne 3 is a story about redemption. The game deals with themes of corruption, addiction, and exploitation. In my opinion, most of these themes were handled poorly. Even the main villain, Victor, the corrupt politician, has nothing else to him other than just being a corrupt politician. More on that later. All these themes feel sort of glossed over, except for one. That one being how the game tackles addiction. Max's aforementioned addiction to painkillers and alcohol has not only affected his memory, but started to negatively affect the people around him. In fact, the only reason why Fabiana's kidnappers get away with her in the first place, the first real conflict of the game only happened because Max was drinking at the bar instead of doing his job. Max will often make a comment when picking up pills, the game's health item, and it's not just a couple of lines that the game reuses over and over. No. I mean a unique line for almost every painkiller you pick up in the game. Max will often mention his addiction to the stuff when picking it up.
I'd have felt worse taking someone's medication if everybody in that place hadn't been trying to kill me.
About halfway through the game, Max decides to pull his life back together and go cold turkey. It feels like a massive event when this happens, and throughout the rest of the game, Max tries to piece his life back together, even teaming up with one of the few good cops in the city, Wilson. I like their character dynamic, Wilson being the more level-headed of the two. He really cares and is trying to make Sao Paulo a better place but can't due to his jurisdiction. Max will often go to places connected to criminal activity that Wilson usually wouldn't be able to go to. A common misconception I've heard is that at the end of the game, Max drinks a beer, even though him quitting drinking was one of the biggest things for the story.
He still has a celebration beer at the end of the story, so...
Well, that thing he's drinking isn't actually a beer. It's an in-game drink called Bangarana. I probably said that so wrong. Oh god. You can see advertisements for the drink throughout the game on TVs and billboards. I can see why some people confused it for alcohol. In fact, at first, I was fooled. But yeah, you know, it's not beer. It's Guarana, Bangarana. I still can't pronounce that. Anyway, Rodrigo Branco's office is raided and Branco is killed. Max escapes the office alive and in search of Fabiana infiltrates the slums of Sao Paulo to try and find why are there so many hard names that are hard to pronounce in this fucking... Serrano, the leader of the Commando Sombra. On our adventure, we meet the aforementioned Wilson.
You did a great job watching after Rodrigo Branco.
Fuck you.
He says there might be a connection between Victor, the UFA, and the recent disappearances in Sao Paulo. We eventually make it up to Serrano's safe house to find that he's also kidnapped Marcelo and Giovanna. And for it to all mean nothing because Fabiana's killed anyway. After some morgue running and gunning, Max witnesses a human trafficking deal between the UFA and some of the paramilitaries from the stadium attack. This will come back into the story later. Marcelo is killed, but Max manages to save Giovanna. While on the run, Giovanna reveals that she is pregnant with Passos' child. After a daring escape and a standoff from the UFA, Giovanna and Passos leave without Max. We run into Wilson again and he puts all the pieces together. We learn that Victor Branco is the bad guy. Victor is kind of forgettable. I mean, we don't learn anything about him other than the fact that he's a corrupt politician. Heck, he only appears in like 5 cutscenes in the whole game. He can literally be summarized by...
We've got to have money.
And I'm not joking. I literally forgot his name multiple times throughout the writing of this script. That's how forgettable he is. I don't know. Say what you want about Vlad being the villain in 2. At least he had more of a, you know, character and more of a motive than just me big corporate man. Me wants all the money, you know? Anyway, in a flashback it's shown that Victor used the boarding of a cruise ship that Max was doing bodyguard duty for to cover up a money laundering scheme. Christ, this guy swindled more money than Uwe Boll.
And basically my message is, fuck yourself.
And worst of all, Passos was in on it. After our talk with Wilson, Max infiltrates a derelict building connected to the Sao Paulo kidnappings. We learn that Victor, on top of money laundering, also has his hand in the organ black market. Max plants some explosives and makes his way to the roof, where we run into this guy, one of Victor's right-hand men whose name doesn't matter because he's killed in like 5 minutes anyway. Passos comes to save the day and we later meet up with Wilson again to infiltrate the UFA headquarters. We find out that Backmeyer, another one of Victor's lackeys, killed Rodrigo Branco. In fact, we actually fight Backmeyer at the end of this level. In a fight where all you have to do is shoot the ceiling. Riveting. Long story short, we learn that Victor's doing what I do when I'm on the run from the IRS, try to flee the country. After a long gauntlet of shooting, we make our way up to Victor, who's trying to run away like a pussy-ass bitch, while every single police officer in Sao Paulo tries to stop us. And this is the final boss. And it fucking sucks. Becca, another one of Victor's goons, grabs a grenade launcher and starts firing off rounds. There's no choreographing to his attacks. You're meant to go into bullet time and shoot the projectiles out of the air. But how are you supposed to do that with every single cop on the goddamn planet and their mother shooting at you? I have died so many times to this. It's borderline infuriating. Okay, I just realized something. All the boss fights in this series suck. I mean, think about it. You got the terrible wire shooting in one. The mediocre final fight in 2. And now this. Oh, finally. When we finally get past Becca, we go after Victor. We shoot his plane down and the game is won. Max walks off into the sunset and roll credits. I'm gonna be honest. I think the story was the weakest part of this game. And it's not bad. It's not even close to being bad. It's just sort of mediocre. I can see the groundwork for a good story just feels sort of glossed over. Throughout the game's development, the script went through multiple rewrites, and yeah, it definitely shows. While I did enjoy my time with this game, I probably won't be coming back anytime soon. Max Payne 3 gets 6 out of 10. And you know what, while we're wrapping up this series, I want to rectify something. In my Max Payne 2 video, I gave the game an 8 out of 10, and thinking back on it now, I think that's a little too high. Now I have more of a grip on what each score means, and I can see that an 8 is a little too generous. That's why I'm downgrading my score to a 7 out of 10. Still a good game though, and one I definitely recommend checking out. And so, we're done. We've covered the Max Payne trilogy. We've certainly come a long way from that first video, I'll tell you that for free, Jesus Christ. It feels like such a long time ago, oh my god. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you stick around for what I have in store for you. I've got a lot planned, I'll tell you that. I never know how to end these fucking videos. Thanks for